Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Help. I'm trapped in a city of women, and it's not what I expected. By Zithero. I don't have a lot of time, so I'll post what I can when I can. Sorry in advance if I'm inconsistent. It's just that she'll be home any minute. My name is Madison Hill. I'm an American citizen and I need to get out of here. I need to start with how I got here. A hike through Panama. We weren't ill-prepared or anything, mind you. My buddy Devin and I put together this trip to trek through the jungle. We had a sat phone, all the required gear, food, hunting equipment, packs, you name it, and Devin had the gear. All the gear in the world doesn't help you if it all gets swept down the river. I sputtered as I dragged myself out of the river, every part of me soaked. And as I got into an upright position, I stared off into the distance as the raft Devin and I had been paddling rushed down the river and over a waterfall. Devin gasped as he popped out of the water nearby, swimming to shore. Holy shit, I thought I would die. I growled at him. Don't count your chickens before they hatch there, Huck Finn. I pointed to the river. Our raft with all our gear just got hurled off a waterfall, which, I may add, should have been on the map. Devin rolled onto his back and turned to me. What do you want me to say? The map didn't mention it. I growled. The map didn't mention it because you had the wrong freaking river, which bode poorly. I know there had to be a problem. Several landmarks we should have passed didn't appear. The rapids and the waterfall didn't help matters. Devin pulled his compass out of his pocket and looked around. North, he pointed out. That makes a little sense. This river should be moving in the opposite direction. He flopped onto the shoreline. Okay, I think I believe you now. We're not on the right river. For heaven's sake, Devin, I shouted. That doesn't help us now, does it? We've been paddling down this river for days. Where the freak are we? I could tell you, Devin explained, if I had the map. Because you're good at reading them, right? I sighed. Hand me the sat phone and we'll call for help, and they can track our signal. I will hate to pay the fines, but it's better than dying out here. Devin pointed ominously to the waterfall. I hesitated while my anger boiled over. Devin, I began, if you tell me that the sat phone is in the raft and not strapped to your belt like it should have been, so help me God. Devin sat up, turning to me. It dug into my thigh on the raft, and if I figured I'd put it with the rest of our gear, it would be fine. He pointed to the waterfall. I didn't expect us to be careening straight out of a Category 4 rapid straight into a freaking waterfall. Men, I freaking swear to God, I shouted as I walked over to the falls. God forbid you stop and check on our location. Is it some kind of insane male pride to stop for directions, Devin? Now all the gear is gone and we are screwed. I was the one who warned you about the falls, okay? I saved us, Devin defended. From the danger you put us in, I shouted back. The choice to ditch the raft and make a swim for shore saved our lives. I could not argue that point, but he could have avoided ditching altogether. I peered carefully over the cliff's edge, holding on tight to a tree. A solid 300 or 400-foot drop greets me as I peer over the cliff. I couldn't spot the raft down the river, meaning the raft was either under the falls or had already floated downstream. To my confusion, however, I spotted a city in the distance. Devin, did you see any cities on the map? A massive city, smack dab in the middle of the jungle. Tall buildings sprouted out of the center, surrounded by large white walls. Cities? He walked over to me, him being taller than me. He only had to look over me to see. Wow. No, but hey, at least it's not that bad now. That's civilization. I pointed to the cliff. And we need to get down from here to get there. Devin frowned. We can try climbing down. I smacked him. You're done deciding, okay? You nearly got us killed. And suggesting we climb down this cliff is just about suicide. I pointed to the terrain on the opposite side of the bank. It sloped downward. Behind us there's more mountain, but if we cross the river and head towards the city, we hopefully won't run into as many climbs down. The river that almost killed us? Devin asked. We head upriver, swim across, and we'll go from there, I explained, trudging up the shoreline. There are mostly rapids and swift current. We barely made it out before, Devin warned. We'll find a safe spot with a weak current and swim fast, I frowned, still walking as he stood there. Are you going to attempt to get to the only civilization we can see, or do you want to take your chances out in the wild more? Devin followed, but I could tell he did so reluctantly. In retrospect, I kind of wish he didn't. We trudged up the river a couple of 100 feet. There I found a wide span to cross, and without thinking I began to swim for the opposite river bank as fast as I could. When I reached the opposite bank, I saw I had traveled much further downstream than I thought I would have. I had made it, yes, but as I looked around, I realized I'm way too close to the waterfall than I would have liked. The falls were only 50 feet from where I ended up. I turned to shout to Devin to head further upstream before making his attempt, but I didn't warn him in time. Devin was already in the water. Swim faster, I shouted. Devin's clothing was heavier, his body bulkier, and all of this slowed his swimming down. The current, however, didn't care much about his weight. Barely halfway across the river, I saw Devin pass me. I shouted for him to grab something, but it was no use. I gaped helplessly from the shore as he slipped over the edge. No, Devin! I screamed and ran towards the fall's edge. I'm not sure what I was hoping to find, really. Devin hanging onto a tree branch in the falls, him standing on an unforeseen rock or ledge. No sign of Devin. I hoped he'd survived. If he'd landed feet first, he would have broken the fall with a dive into the water, and he'd be okay. Regardless, there was nothing I could do for him up here. The faster I got to the city, the faster I'd be able to tell them of Devin, and maybe we could launch a search party. My hopes for Devin were pretty low as I finally made it to the city. After hours of hiking, my feet were waterlogged and aching, my fingers bloody and scraped from scaling down the smaller rock face. To summarize, I was exhausted. It was a hard trek through the thick underbrush, and a few rough climbs down here and there. Nothing crazy like the 400-foot cliffs Devin went sailing off of. I tried not to think about that too much, but I was trying to think about what the strange city before me. Erected around the city were massive walls, almost 30 feet tall and painted white. The base of the walls had stains of small plant matter and dirt. But despite this, the wall appeared cared for. There looked to be guard towers every couple hundred feet, and as I walked out of the underbrush, I spotted a road leading to a massive gate. As I approached, a woman shouted from a guard tower in Spanish, "Halt! Identify yourself immediately." My neck craned upward as I tried to squint through the light of the setting sun behind the guard tower. My name is Madison Hill. I'm an American, and I need help," I shouted in my best Spanish. The woman called down from the guard tower. "Go home, little girl," she shouted in English. I glared. "Excuse me, I'm a 25-year-old woman. Maybe you can't see from up there, but I'm lost hopelessly, and I need help." "You don't want our help, child," the woman shouted. "Now get the hell out of here." "My traveling partner went over the falls," I shouted. He very well may be still alive. I need help, a search party, even to just... I paused as I considered the grim reality of it all. To recover his body. There was a silence from the guard tower, and then, after what felt like ages, a response. Wait there. I resigned myself to do as she said, so I just leaned against a tree by the road for a bit. After about 5 minutes, the gates opened, and about 3 Humvees full of soldiers rushed out. The first pulling up to me. Another woman was driving. She wore military fatigues and had a short, buzzed haircut. She leaned over to me from the driver's window, looking down from the large truck. What's the details on your lost boy there, short stuff? I was about 5'8". I wasn't short by most standards, but replied anyway. His name is Devin Lopez. He's about 6'4", athletic build. He was wearing a black shirt and khaki pants, brown hiking boots. He went over the fall when we tried to cross the river. He wasn't fast enough to beat the current. I trailed off, not mentioning he was following me, at my suggestion. About how long ago did he go over, sweetness? She asked. The pet names were grating on me, but I was getting help. Perhaps this beastly woman would be Devin's only hope. I didn't want to press my luck. Honestly, it was several hours ago. By effing Hera, the woman groaned. All right, let's get rolling, ladies. And with that, she drove off, kicking up dirt from the road as the caravan of Humvees sped off towards the riverbank. A familiar voice came from the gate. Okay, girl, let's get you cleaned up, all right? I turned to face the voice from the guard tower, but wasn't prepared for what greeted me. The guard woman had to be standing well over 6.5 feet tall, wore a military uniform that featured a metal breastplate and a sword at her hip. She had a rifle strapped to her back, and it looked like a bloody cannon. She had long blonde hair tied back into a tight braid. Her skin was a light olive tone. You going to stand there in soaking wet clothes, or you going to come in with me and get dried off? She asked. Right, sorry. I walked towards her. I'm Madison, by the way. You don't have to call me girl. The woman nods. Nice to meet you, Madison. I'm Vera. She shook my hand with a vice-like grip. I winced, but she didn't seem to take much notice. Thanks for helping. Vera turned and started to lead me around the gate towards the opposite side of the wall. She slid her gun off of her back and loaded it into the back of a small jeep. On it was a symbol that looked much like an ornate crescent moon. The moon itself faced downward, and 3 arrows pierced through it, the tips facing the same direction as the opening of the crescent. Vera nods. No reason to thank me. She motioned to the huge closing gate. They've been bored for weeks. A search and rescue to them is a big event. They were happy to mobilize and patrol. She got into the truck and opened the passenger side door through the cab for me. Hop in, Maddie. Madison is fine. Vera just shrugged as I climbed in, and I began to drive down the road into the city. We'll get you cleaned up and into some dry clothes, she said. I'm sure the House of Hestia will be happy to get you sorted. Hestia? I turned to her in confusion. As we drove towards the city, I noticed the buildings were modern designs, but had hints of old Greek houses I'd seen before. I also noticed a huge disparity in height between the inhabitants of the busy streets. The sidewalks were full of tall, bestial women in military fatigues or uniform. Some were taller than Vera, some shorter by a few inches. However, there were normal women too, far less, but they were there. They were all carrying shopping of some kind or another, and I noticed they mostly wore dresses. There wasn't one of them that was not wearing a light summer dress or skirt of some sort. Unlike the soldiers, they varied their hair, some long, some tied back, some short. All the soldiers seemed to have tight braids or buzz cuts. I noticed the soldiers paid the smaller women little mind. and the women had to dodge the soldiers as they walked through the streets. I'm lost, I explained. Where the hell am I? The jeep came to a halt before a large building where many of the normal women were entering and leaving. Over the door sat a symbol. It appeared to be a table, and set on it was a bowl. Honestly, better not ask questions. The less you know, the better, Vera said as she got out of the truck and escorted me inside. I noticed as she hurried, the other women moved out of her path. Some even held the door for her. The opposite was true for me. Many of them gave me shocked or grave expressions. "Stick with me, Maddie," Vera ordered. I followed behind her, not being able to pick up the rather expertly hidden whispers of the ladies we passed. Vera, I have to state the obvious here, but where are the men? I've only seen women here." "We do not allow men within the city walls," Vera explained. "Only women may enter here." Huh. I wondered if I wanted to leave. It was Devon's fault that we got lost in the first place. A vacation in a land of women might be what I needed. Or so I thought. We made our way to a desk with a woman who had long white hair but seemed far from old. She was jotting a few things down when she looked up to spot Vera. She started in Spanish. "Oh, Vera," she smiled. "How nice of you to stop by." She came out from behind the desk. The woman was an inch or two shorter than me, but hugged the massive Vera, regardless. "What brings you to the house of Hestia?" she frowned. "Is everything okay with Tabitha?" "Tabitha's just fine, Lana. I think she's out shopping or something," Vera muttered in Spanish, trying to move through the conversation as quickly as possible. I needed some help. This girl got stranded and the river soaked her clothes. I didn't want her to get an infection or anything. Lana leaned over to me, giving me a small wave and a fake smile. She looked to Vera, the smile holding. "Vera, may I speak with you over there, please?" Lana took Vera's hand and pulled her about 15 feet off to the left of me. I overheard what I could as they spoke. "Are you insane? Do you remember what happened before?" Lana chastised. "What do you want me to do? She's good as dead out in the jungle anyway," Vera retorted. "You're always like this," Lana huffed. "You never think things through." "I never think things through. You're the one to talk, Lana," she glared. "If you were my Hestie again." "But I'm not your Hestie now, am I?" Lana poked Vera in the stomach. "I will deal with your charity case, but don't expect me to stick my neck out for you or her." Lana then walked over to me, forcing a smile. "Sorry about that. Let's get you cleaned up, shall we?" Sure, thanks." As we walked past Vera, Lana asked, "Who knows you took her here?" "No one," Vera explained. "What does she know about us?" "Nothing." "Well, we're better off than last time," Lana said. "Wait here, Vera." And with that, she dragged me off to the back. As we moved inside, there were more women still. All normal-sized women that I was used to. We got to a large dressing room, and Lana began to rummage through the drawers and closets. "You're what a size?" She looked me over. "7?" "I'm not wearing a dress," I explained. Her smile finally broke as her eyes narrowed on me, and she walked up to me, poking my chest. "Listen here, American girl. We could have left you out there in the jungle to fester and die from whatever you'd have caught out there," she began. "But that big idiot Vera has too big a heart to watch you slink off and rot. So the very least you could do for me and her is accept our hospitality." She heaved a sigh. "I don't have pants in your size here, okay? I have undergarments, I have shoes, I have boots, and I have dresses. I can find the least dressiest dress I can find, but it will be dry, that I promise." "Sorry," I apologized. "I'm just not keen on dresses, and I'm kind of trying to ignore the fact that I'm lost and was until very recently in very real mortal danger. Lana nodded and plopped a dark green dress and a pair of boots on a bench. Apology accepted. She started to undo the buttons on my shirt. Now let's get you out of these wet clothes, shall we? I begrudgingly got undressed and Lana helped me dry off. I flinched as we got to my socks, groaning as I peeled them off, revealing open sores and a bit of blood. Lana sighed and came back with a small first aid kit. I understand you are under duress, but it is important to dry off your feet if you will be walking for a while. I know, I defended, but I didn't have the time. My friend got washed down the river and I was trying to get help as soon as I could. Oh, I didn't realize. Sorry, Lana said as she rubbed some iodine on my feet and wrapped them up in some gauze. She stood up and ran a towel over my hair before she stopped at my neck. Well, this might feel a bit weird, but it's got to go, Laura announced. What's gotta? Ow! I shouted, as it felt like she had ripped a Band-Aid off the back of my neck. The hell was that? Lana's fake smile was in full force, and her hands were behind her back. You don't want to know. What don't I want to know? What did you do to me? I demanded. Lana sighed and showed me what was in her hand. Wriggling about in her palm was an inky black leech, almost 4 inches long. Oh, my, I whispered. Okay, I'm sorry I asked. I have no more on me, do I? A shiver ran down my spine. Lana shook her head. No, luckily. My skin was crawling as Lana dried me off and handed me a plain-looking bra and matching set of panties. I warned you I did. I heard something wet, and with some heft land in a wastepaper basket. You do not understand how many of those nasty little things I've had to pull off some of the warriors when they go swimming. I don't want to know, I responded as I got the dry bra on. Sorry again if I seem ungrateful. I'm just rattled. It's okay, Lana said. Arms up? I have memories of my mother tossing a dress on me similarly, so I held my arms up and Lana slipped the thing over my head. There we go. Lana zipped me up and then handed me a pair of socks and boots. I assume you can handle the rest? Vera then barged in. We have to go. Arties are not allowed back here, Lana scolded. To top it off, this is the dressing room, mind you. Knock! What if she were naked? I raised an eyebrow. We're all women here, Vera grumbled. Lana rolled her eyes. What is so important that you've got to barge in here all huffy? I've just got to get back to my post 10 minutes ago. Come on. Vera had rushed me into her truck and sped like a madwoman towards the gate. What's the hurry? I asked. Vera explained as she drove. I'm not allowed to take you into the city, but I couldn't just leave you in your state. You just swam through the river and climbed halfway down the damn mountain, she groaned. I didn't think it was an issue, but then my superior officer called and asked where I was, and I fibbed and I said I was at my post. But they said they'd meet me at my post, and now I'm dead, she trailed off, frowning. I turned to look out of the window of the truck and saw a Humvee with several rather gruff-looking women in similar military garb as the one who drove past to search for Devon outside. One had a few medals on her chest and a nasty scar on her cheek. Private Costa, why did you leave your post? She barked. Vera rushed out and saluted before the higher-ranking officer. I'm sorry, Captain Garreau. I had to. Is this the American? Captain Garreau glared at me. I waved meekly. Yes, Vera said sheepishly. The captain looked down her nose at Vera and me. Steward Rigus requests her presence. Vera shivered. The steward, but... Unfortunately, yes, Captain Garreau growled. A few hours later, they sat me in an opulent office. After a drive into the center of the city, we left Vera at the wall while Captain Garreau had escorted me along with a few unarmed soldiers here. Sat across from me was a woman, huge as any other, with shoulder-length brown hair and hazel eyes. A nameplate on her desk read, Steward of the Penthesil Dimitra Hera Rigas. She looked me over and sighed. Your timing is horrible, she said in flawless English. I'm sorry? My daughter has just left for a trip to the United States. Under normal circumstances, I'd have sent you back with her, she explained. She's visiting as a diplomatic envoy. It would have been much simpler to have them deal with you. I sighed. Listen, I'm sorry to impose, but I was just lost, and this was the only civilization for miles. Dimitra scoffed. For further than that, her phone rang. Just a moment. She answered it as I sat there quietly, looking around the room at an assortment of photos of her next to other soldiers. The wall had swords and shields, a few animal head trophies here and there. I sat in the leather chair, and the desk Dmitri sat at was a heavy oak, an expensive thing. The office was well appointed, and so whatever a steward is, apparently it's of high importance. Oh, so you found him, she paused. Struck his head on the way down, you think? Where did you find him? That's a fair distance, and rather unfortunate. Keep me posted of the situation. She ended the call. I closed my eyes, prepping for the worst news. Well, you know half the story, she paused. Your friend is dead. Struck his head either downstream in the rapids or on the fall down. They found him on the riverbank about 45 kilometers downstream from the waterfall. I hugged my shoulders, blaming myself for this. Damn it, Devon. Sorry for your loss, Dimitra said. It was a tone done so poorly that I could tell that she wasn't only not sorry, but likely didn't even care enough to humor me through it. Was he a lover? No, just a friend, I snipped, my eyes watering. Fair enough. Diana turned away from me, looking to the wall next to her, but handed me a box of tissues from under her desk. I took them, drying my eyes. Thanks. Just let me know when you're quite finished, Dimitra advised, still looking away from me. With a huff, I cleared my nose and pushed the remaining tissues away. Yeah, don't want to give me any grieving time. She took the tissues back, turning to face me. It's dishonorable to look at someone as they cry, she explained. More insulting to look away and ignore someone's emotions, I quipped. When can I go home? Dimitra looked at some paperwork. Shipments to the States have slowed as of late. The pacifist in chief doesn't seem to want our products as often, she grumbled. My daughter's next visit is, well, in several months. I shuddered. Surely there's a nearby consulate or something you can bring me to? In Panama or Colombia? Hell, even Brazil. Dimitra glared at me. While they are our neighbors, we have no relationship with any of these countries, nor is it desired. We have a strict no-contact policy with most. The U.S. is a rare exception, she sighed. Regardless, at such a time as we can unload you back home, we'll hold you here. I've already applied for a refugee status for you, working out a place for you to stay. She trailed off as someone entered the room from behind me. It was a more monstrously huge woman than average, wearing red leather armor and carrying a huge spear with her. Adorned on her head was a helm with a red fringe of hair spiked over the top, reminding me of an old Spartan helmets in movies. She had black skin and light brown eyes. For the love of Hera, Dimitra cursed. If the Queen wants to speak with me, she can just call me, rather than sending her royal guard like a damn trained pigeons. She said this would anger you, the woman grinned. The Queen wishes to see the American girl in the royal court. Dimitra cursed in several languages. 2 were Spanish, and I swear I heard some Portuguese in there. She turned to me. Well, aren't you most unfortunate? You get to speak with the Queen. I frowned. You have a queen? I was led to a huge building that was a couple of 100 stories tall at the center of the city. It had huge columns reaching high into the air and ornate marble statues of Greek gods, and even a few Norse ones, specifically Valkyrie riding winged horses. We made our way up a series of some huge stone steps into a massive chamber full of loud shouting and hollering. Demetra grumbled, Oh, it seems someone is appealing a judgment. How nice. Demetra pushed her way through the crowd. Several soldiers in the red leather uniform were beside me and ensured that Demetra and I got through the crowd to see the commotion. The judge was wrong, my queen. I'm innocent, shouted a woman who knelt before a massive throne. There were 3 thrones, to be specific, 1 central throne and 2 smaller ones on each side. Sitting on the central throne was a woman with long red hair and bright blue eyes, so bright I could spot them from across the room. She wore purple robes with a silver breastplate and silver arm guards. On her head sat a gold and silver crown. She clad her feet in silvered boots. Behind her, as part of her garb or throne, was a pair of white feathered wings. The queen spoke. And how would you appeal the court's decision? My queen, I request to fight for my freedom, for my honor. The room erupted in boos, jeers, and hollering. None of it positive. She killed her Hesty, one woman shouted. Hang her! String her up! Off with her head! Were a few of the things shouted from the crowd. The off with her head started to get a chant rolling. A shorter girl to the right of the queen sat in one throne. A smaller crown sat on her head, black hair and similar blue eyes. She wore red and purple robes, and her throne, or the robes, had similar feathered wings. She spoke up. Mother, we shouldn't honor such a barbaric request. The crowd booed, which was unsettling. A much taller girl to the left of the queen, with long black hair and violet eyes, chimed in. Come on, sis. I want to see a fight. This got a good reaction from the rowdy crowd. She wore robes more like the queen, though she had more plate armor, all of it far less polished than the other 2. Nonsense, the queen said, standing. Her wings moved with her, and I thought they must have been attached to her robes. That's what I thought would be a rational thing anyway. But I was wrong. The queen spread her large feathered wings and took to the air, clearing the distance between the throne and the kneeling woman in an instant. She may indeed fight for her freedom. A mad look took her face as she cradled the woman's chin in her hands. But in order to do so, she must fight me and win. My mouth hung open in shock. Standing before me wasn't a woman or a queen. This was some kind of angel. I have to go. She's home. I'll update you on what happened next soon, but in the meantime, send help. So quoth this raven. Well, darlings, it looks like I am in Evil Idol after all. Boy, what an emotional ride. I am so sorry for the video I published before. So, yeah, well, I will try to not be so prideful in the future. But I'm in, so I will need your support. Next Friday, they will put up my first video. I will put it on the community tab and everywhere. If you guys can support me and post this everywhere you possibly can and get as many people to view it. That would be enormously helpful. This was part 1. I don't know how many parts there are. There are 2 out at the moment. So I will try and get the second part out as soon as I can. Well, we'll see what happens. Within a week, I hope. Sorry I'm so scattered, and I'm sorry for any background noise. They are building a house next door. I may be up late at night recording for Evil Idol. Anyway, have a lovely weekend, my darlings. If I get this out by Saturday, if it's later than Saturday, have a lovely week. And thank you all so much for supporting me and coming to listen to my stories. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, to Ermin, to Darren and Jennifer, to Laura, and thank you very much, Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.